Our next guest, Mark Silverthorn, is a wee bit of an expert on this area, and that has to do with a debt collection, which ain't good. And he's written a book called The Wolf at the Door. I mean, what qualifies you to write The Wolf at the Door?
Well, I actually worked as a collection lawyer for 12 years, and my office actually sat right on the collection floor at some of the largest collection agencies in Canada. I would just open my door, and there'd be between 50 and 200 collectors outside my door.
Wow. Now, so maybe you could describe, I mean, what position are you writing this book from? Are you saying, hey, pay your bills, or hey, here's some considerations if you're having some problems with these collection agencies? Because sometimes any of us can run into financial circumstances that will make paying our bills difficult. So what is the essence of your book?
Well, part of the book deals with how to handle collection agencies, how to stop the calls or how to deal with them. But a major part of the book is providing people with 8 different options in terms of how you can deal with your debt situation. There's lots of things that people can do. They can make monthly installment payments. They can do a debt settlement plan through credit counseling. They can make a lump sum payment. They could get a debt consolidation loan. They could negotiate a lump sum settlement at a huge discount, or they could see a bankruptcy trustee about a consumer proposal or personal bankruptcy.
I have to ask you, Mark, because I've never, thank goodness, never been in a situation where I've had to deal with the collection agencies and had that phone call come to me saying, you know, you owe us a lot of money. What are the collection agencies like? We get this television idea of them that they're all mean and snarly, and it's like, are they willing to, when you get that phone call, start to sit down and talk about options, or is this something that, you know, consumer beware, you need to know what your options are before you go into it?
Yeah, I mean, the collection agency is not going to tell you that in Ontario, if the date of your last payment is more than 2 years old, that you can avoid paying the debt. They're not going to tell you
really
that if the date of your last payment is more than 7 years ago, it has to drop off your credit report. The collection agency is going to tell you, you owe us $4,000, we need the payment by Tuesday of next week.
Wow.
So they're not going to tell you what your options are.
Well, and you've kind of got a list of 9 things you said, you know, the collector, when they come to the door, they're not going to tell you. And one of them was, you're under no legal obligation to speak to a collector from a collection agency.
That's correct. I mean, it doesn't matter who calls you on the phone. You're under no legal obligation to speak to them, whether they're a telemarketer or a collection agency or your creditor. You don't have to speak with them. You don't have to disclose your name, or you don't have to give them any information.
So if that call comes, do you just hang up the phone, or just give them as little information as possible, make it quick and end the call?
Well, in Ontario, there's one advantage to actually having that initial conversation with the collector, and that is, once you have an initial conversation with the collector, then they're limited to calling you 3 times in a 7-day period. Now, in Ontario, it is possible to do different things to actually stop a collection agency from having the right to contact you.
So what can you do?
Well, you can send a registered letter to the collection agency indicating that you dispute owing the debt and inviting them to sue you. After that, they're not allowed to contact you.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. See, this is why we have people like you on the show. Because a lot of us, this isn't stuff that, you're right, obviously isn't readily advertised because they don't want us to know it. Because they want us to pay our bills like good citizens. I mean, and ultimately what this comes to is that we just shouldn't be not paying our bills. And what does it mean for your credit rating if we all of a sudden do have a collection agency coming at us?
Well, typically what's going to happen is your original creditor is going to attempt to collect the debt for the first 3 to 6 months that it's in default, and then they're going to give it to a collection agency. If a collection agency's got it and it's 6 months in default, it's already at an R9, so it can't get any worse than it already is.
Wow. Well, and what we're not saying here is, you know, just hang on to those bills, don't bother paying them, eventually they go away, you know. What we are saying is there have been some really tough economic times over the past, you know, year and a half, and people who normally would be the people that would pay off that credit card, that would do all these things, just have no means to do that right at the moment. So suddenly you're getting these calls. People who have always paid their bills before are getting calls, but you do have some rights.
Sure. And I mean, you can send a series of post-dated checks to a collection agency. They're not going to tell you that you can do that. They'll even tell you that you can't. But if you send them a series of post-dated checks, they will cash them. And you may be in a situation where you can negotiate a settlement for significantly less than 100 cents on the dollar.
And those are the things that you need to know if you find yourself in one of those situations where you know, the debt collector's following you pretty close behind. You need to have the information, and the book is a great way to get that information. Michael, where is it available?
Well, you can order it online through, I guess Amazon.ca and Indigo, and also at major booksellers.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And you've got your office right here in town, too.
That's correct.
So people can contact you that way as well. And keep the wolf away from your door, which is not what the book is titled, but that's eventually what you want to do with the help of the book. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.